It seems that any Arsenal player, or player that I wish was an Arsenal player, players that are linked to the Gunners, any of these guys that go and have an amazing performance are the ones that are linked to us and then won't join, which is exactly what happened last night. Hassem Aouar and Leon absolutely devastating against Manchester City, which has now put considerable amount more money on the Frenchman's price. And we're here today to somehow wish and pray and hope, but ultimately break down Hassem Aouar. So yeah, hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk. Back again with you guys for another show, for another episode of our Tactical Breakdown series, the show in which we look at the players that are linked to Arsenal, the players that could be joining us and joining up with Mikel Arteta next season in an analytical, statistical way, and also getting the help of our experts to give you the insight that you desperately deserve around these players. And today I'm a little bit excited because I love this player. I genuinely didn't know too much about him a few months ago. He's gradually grown onto the radar, having seen some performances for Lyon this season. And obviously you guys in the chat box have been continuously pestering me to get this video out and to do a tactical breakdown on him. And now that we've seen more concrete links to the Frenchman, I thought this is the right time to do so. And I'm very happy to be joined, of course, by Jeremy Smith a little bit later to talk through his insights around the Frenchman. But just as an initial reaction to the sort of the links to Hassem Aouar, having watched back the game yesterday against Manchester City, and we're going to go into some of the intricacies of that game with Aouar in a little bit too. I just feel this one might be a little bit too good to be true if it were to happen. The latest reports are that apparently Edu contacted Lyon about a player plus cash deal. The player in question was Guendouzi, and Lyon turned that down. It's going to take a considerable fee, I feel, to get this man in if we do, which could, of course, put into jeopardy other transfer plans of midfielders like Thomas Partey. So it could be a toss-up between the two, and I'll go into a little bit more about that later on. But let's jump into our expert insight. Please make sure you follow us at the Gooner Talk TV. Give a subscription if you would like to get more content from us, and hit that like button. We did a fantastic video yesterday on Willian with some of the Chelsea boys, and of course also did a video on Raul Sanyehi's sacking, removal, retirement, whatever you want to describe it, which has got some massive feedback, all positive as well. So thank you so much for you guys that tuned in. And we've also got some fantastic articles out on the website if you want to check out some of our articles. I wrote one about Raul Sanyehi's removal yesterday, so click the link in the description to find that. But let's jump to Jeremy Smith, our French football correspondent from Get French Football News and from French Football Weekly, and get his thoughts. Now, I should say that there's nothing dodgy going on with the lighting in Jeremy's video. He's on holiday, so he's with rudimentary equipment, shall we say. I love it. But let's go into what Jeremy has to say on Hassem Aouar.
Fun fact, on the exact day that Michael Owen was scoring his wonder goal and David Beckham was getting sent off for his little temper tantrum against Argentina in the 98 World Cup in Saint-Etienne, just up the road, Hassem Aouar was being born. He stayed in Lyon basically the whole time since then, and over the last 3 years or so, he's probably become Lyon's star player, arguably with Depay at the moment, but certainly sort of following on the natural progression of homegrown talent from Lacazette to Nabil Fekir. Aouar is the next one who's likely to leave the club, probably this summer, especially if Lyon don't qualify for Europe and they have to win the Champions League to do that, although after tonight's result against Man City, they're not so far away. And tonight maybe is a sort of match that certainly shows the best of Aouar at his best. He is a sort of galaxy chocolate bar of a footballer. He's so smooth. He's not someone who's going to dribble past five players, even though he probably has the skills to do that. He's got fantastic technical ability, a brilliant sense of space, able to kind of drop between the lines, really good long and short pass on him. Not a bad finish, and even a decent tackler on his day. He can do a little bit of everything, and the real frustration possibly over the last 3 years is just the lack of consistency and proactivity. You don't necessarily get great matches from him week in, week out, and also when Lyon struggle, which they often do, he sort of goes down to everyone else's level rather than sort of raising everyone up to his level. But there's no doubt about his ability, and the fact that he generally shows it against the very top teams is sort of, I guess, a good sign, maybe also a bad sign in a way, because it suggests he could pick and choose his matches. And certainly his fantastic performance against Man City tonight just follows on from his great performances against them in the Champions League last year. So clearly a brilliant player there, and whoever signs him and manages to get some consistency out of him onto a fantastic thing. And I think with the fact that Liverpool have been linked before, Barcelona, Man City, obviously Guardiola's often spoken highly of him, and certainly after tonight, you've got to think that they're going to make a play for him. Arsenal have got a lot of competition, but I certainly think that if Arsenal were to get him in Arteta, they've possibly got the perfect coach to get something out of him, because I don't think it's a sort of wild step to kind of say that they're sort of similar players. I think Arteta also was a sort of really silky player who, like Aouar at his best, not only would make his teams tick, he'd make them purr. I think he also had a little bit of a side to him, like Aouar. Although he looks a little lightweight, or they both look a bit lightweight, they both know how to look after themselves and can even play a defensive midfield role if necessary. So certainly the likeness between the two players suggests that if anyone can get the best out of Aouar, Arteta might be that man. So I think Arsenal have got tough competition. There's no way Olas is going to let him go cheaply. But if Arsenal get him, then I genuinely think they've got someone who could become one of the best midfielders in the world over the next couple of years.
I think it's just unbelievable to think that every time that Arsenal get linked to a player, they go off and have an amazing performance against a team, which then adds on 20, 40, 50, 60, 100 million quid onto their value. But I completely take on board everything there that Jeremy talked about. You can follow him out on Twitter at JeremySmith98. And for me, Jeremy there not only describes him as a galaxy chocolate bar, which is just arguably the best simile of a player that we've ever had on the Tactical Breakdown show, but he just does so many things. We talk about Matteo Guendouzi, I suppose, as a jack of all trades, master of none. And Aouar just seems to be that sort of step up from Guendouzi, someone that is a jack of all trades and masters so many of them as well, and does them to such a high ability too. And the game against Man City, I want to bring into highlight and some of the key areas of that game, specifically looking at some of his passing, his dribbling, and his defensive side of his game as well, showing how good he is in all those different areas. We start off with this image towards the end of the first half where Leon are still trying to go for the win. Man City are pressing high. There's a loose ball down the Man City's left wing at Leon's right, and Aouar instinctively is drawn to the ball. He wants to get the ball back into the possession of Leon as quickly as possible. He does that. And not only does he do that, but he takes the ball on and carries it forward, taking on Manchester City players, beating them, and finally then laying the ball through too fast and too hard in this sense. And this is what I suppose Jeremy is talking about in terms of consistency and maybe final ball. The pass is slightly off. But when he does get the final ball right, which we'll show you an image of in a second, this point in the game here, leading to Leon's goal, which took them 2-1 up, finding loads of space. Another thing I've noticed about from watching him after a couple of games and looking into some of his highlights over the rest of the season, that he finds space so well in a field which is really congested at times against a Man City side that press and don't give you much space. He seems to find that space in dangerous areas as well. And he does that here. The pass that he plays through obviously goes through Kambi's legs and then leads through to Dembele, who then obviously scores. And you could talk about it being fortunate and the offside. We won't go into that because that's not for us to discuss. But the fact is that he plays the ball and gets the assist for this key goal in the game, and finding that space, and then the final ball may not always be the right one, or in terms of the execution of it may not always be correct, but he knows with his vision and his technical ability what types of passes to play, and I love that about his game in a more advanced way. And it's not only in advanced areas where he's potent, because he presses really well. In addition to this, Leon are currently 3-1 up. They've pretty much got the game in a bag with less than a minute to go in the game, and Aouar is still pressing, busting a gut to get back and help his team. And in this case, he's actually pressing forwards, forcing Manchester City defenders into mistakes like Walker in this scenario, forces him Walker does gain the ball back in possession eventually in this situation, but Aouar presses him into making mistakes, into forcing the ball back into deeper into the Man City half, away from their own goal, and that's a really key part of what a midfielder needs to do. Now, we next go on to looking at our statistics, of course, into his Wyscout area. And you look at the heat map that you can see on your screen now. This guy prefers to play on the left-hand side of the midfield. I mean, he's pretty much ambidextrous in the way that he uses his feet fantastically well, and that enables him to play in such a versatile area of the pitch. Whilst we do think of him more as a sort of a number 8, he does still get back, as Jeremy said, and does the defensive work. One of the key things that I wanted to ask Jeremy about was in comparison to Thomas Partey, and I know that Jeremy's not watched too much of Partey, but in the description of the Ghanaian international, someone that is transformative in the midfield, takes the ball from the back line, beats the press and transforms it into an attacking style play. I said, does Aouar do a similar role? And he said, no, not particularly. He's more advanced. He can play a defensive role, but actually he's the guy that's going to be playing that number 8 position for most of the game. The guy that is going to be linking up with the attack, playing the balls through that you saw led to Lyon's second goal against Manchester City. And I'm okay with that because Arsenal are desperately in need of some central creativity, and Aouar definitely would provide us with that. So let's have a look at some of his key stats. Attacking wise, you're looking at the goals he scored this season in those 4 competitions, being Liga, the Champions League, the Coupe de France, and the Coupe de la Ligue. He scored 9 goals, got 5 assists so far this season, which is a good return for a centre midfielder. Dribbles, every single game he's averaging nearly 7 dribbles and winning and making those successfully in over 50% of them, which is good. Offensive duels, 13.32. That is an insane amount of offensive duels, and to win nearly 50% of those is also really, really strong. The shots that he takes in games are typically found from all around the central part of the pitch, and that leads in also to his central creativity. That's where we find him popping up with those goals and also getting some shots in from outside the box as well that can be dangerous and lead to shots on target and, of course, some goals as well. If we look into the passing statistics of those 4 competitions as well, 85% passing accuracy, and if we then bleed that into the pass into the final third and pass into the box, 6.62 pass into the final third with a 78.4% accuracy is good, and then nearly 60% passing accuracy for those passes that do go into the box to try and create those chances is really nice. If we look at this game against PSG, those passes that went into the box were typically onto the left flank, and that's something that will be really good to linking up for Aubameyang. If Aubameyang's playing on that left wing, Aouar would definitely help the creativity of that left side and adding to that. Our right-hand side can take care of itself sometimes with how much Pepe's technical ability helps him, but sometimes I feel like Aubameyang needs that added presence from the centre of the pitch, and Aouar, I feel, is someone that could definitely do that. Moving then finally into his defensive statistics to round off the video, because it's a key part of a midfielder's game to see those. Nearly 5 defensive duels, and he's winning 52.9% of them is really good. Aerial duels is winning 40% of those. 2.6 loose ball duels and winning nearly 30% of those is a little low. Maybe we'd see that get a bit higher. And interceptions is actually quite low. I'd like to see those interceptions go a little bit higher. Maybe we'd see them increase in the Premier League side that isn't in as much domination of possession as maybe Lyon is during their games. Losses to recoveries is very skewed in a negative sense, but he is a creative-minded player that wants to play those key passes, and that does lead sometimes to him losing the ball. But 50% of his recoveries are done in the opposition half. You saw at the end of the Man City game, the example that I showed you, him pressing the Manchester City back line, winning those recoveries in the opposition half 50% of the time or more is really key. In terms of discipline, 4 yellow cards across 4 competitions is really, really strong. 32 fouls only across the season. And for me, that's really good to see that he's disciplined and isn't going to be that hot-headed player that we know Xhaka can be, is strong. Now, coming down to a final judgment, it's going to be tough, I think, to see Houssem Aouar in an Arsenal shirt next season. He's an exceptionally well-wanted player by across many teams. And Arsenal, of course, have got financial implications of what they need to do. If Arsenal can move on some of their players, tempt Lyon into getting Guendouzi, maybe. I doubt it when you've got a player as good as Aouar already at the club. They're obviously still in the Champions League, so any movement I can't see happening until at least after the semi-finals if they get knocked out in that side of the draw. I believe they're up against Bayern Munich. No, is it Bayern Munich? It might be. But whoever it is, Lyon have got a real tough task. I hope they go through. I'm kind of rooting for Lyon as sort of a side team along with RB Leipzig to try and upset the crowd. We'll see what happens. I really hope that Aouar somehow manages to put on the red and white jersey of Arsenal next season because he's a hell of a talent. Thanks again to Jeremy Spiff for helping us with today's video. You can find him on Twitter at JeremySmith98, and you can find us at the Gooner Talk TV. If you've enjoyed the show, please help us out with a like and subscribe to the channel if you're new. And if you'd like to support the channel and help us out and get some extra content, your Expert Members podcast will be coming out on Monday with Glenn Glazer. Really looking forward to speaking to the former ITN reporter. And also, we're going to be doing a show for our Plus members this week with Mike, who is weirdly good at predicting things. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you so much for listening, people. We'll see you again very, very soon. And as always, up the Arsenal.